Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. The next chapter in Riyadh al-Salihin is Babun fi nahi an al-tajassus. The chapter on the prohibition of spying on other people. وعن معاوية رضي الله عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول, the Messenger of Allah said, إنك إن اتبعت عورات المسلمين أفسدتهم. If you were to follow the private matters of the Muslims, you would have spoiled them, you would have corrupted them. أو كدت أن تفسدهم, or you would have been on the verge of corrupting them. And then Imam Nawawi says, Hadithun Sahih Rawa Abu Dawud bi-isnadin Sahih. It's in Abu Dawud and it's an authentic hadith. So the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's saying to be careful about following the private matters of Muslims in their personal lives. And the wording that he used was awrat. The word awra is well known to most people. Like you cover your awra. You know, when you're going to pray, when you go outside, whatever it is. The awra for a man is between the navel and the knee. The awra for a woman is the body except the face, the hands, and the feet. This is like your private parts. You want to make sure your private parts are covered in public. No one should be going and trying to, I don't know, if you're wearing shorts, you lift up their shorts and try to look underneath. That's really what it is. But that's in clothing. There's also awra when it comes to what people do in their personal life. So what somebody does in their home, in their personal life, is personal. Nobody should try to go in and investigate and look and say, hey, what is that person doing in their home? I think I smell some, even if it's your neighbor, I think I smell some, tobacco, or I smell marijuana coming from their house or something. You go and you confront them. There's a difference between things that are private and things that are public. That's why I want to mention the next hadith as well. It's more of an athar, not a hadith. وعن ابن مسعود رضي الله عنه أنه أتي برجل فقيل له هذا فلان تقطر لحيته خمرا. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud reports that a man was brought to him, and he was one of the scholars among the Sahaba. So a man was brought to him, and they said, here's a man who his beard is dripping or smelling like it has alcohol, like he's been drinking some alcohol. فقال إن قد نهينا عن التجسس. He said, we have been forbidden from spying on other people. ولكن يظهر لنا شيء نأخذ به. But if something is very clearly apparent to us, meaning in public, then we take it. حديث حسن صحيح رواه أبو داود بإسناد على شرط البخاري ومسلم. So Imam Nawawi says that this hadith is actually quite a strong hadith, even though technically it's an athar. It's a narration about the companion Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. So he's explaining the principle of when do you take information that's brought to you, and when is it considered spying? When is it not considered spying? So if somebody comes and you say, you know what, this person, his shirt smells like he has alcohol on it. We should enact the punishment. Let's say you're the Islamic State, a real Islamic State, for example, and you're in charge. There's a punishment for drinking alcohol, but the punishment for drinking alcohol is a public punishment. It's not a punishment for drinking alcohol. It's a punishment for publicly drinking alcohol, and you're caught. And there's a way to determine if this person is going to be punished or not punished. And this is sometimes a lot of Muslims make this mistake, because we say, okay, is it haram to steal? Yes. Is there a punishment for it? Yes. Is it haram to drink alcohol? Yes. Is there a punishment for it? Yes. Is it haram to commit zina, adultery, or fornication? Yes. Is there a punishment for it? Yes. But the difference is, when it comes to these type of things, the punishment is only when it gets to the level of being public to a certain extent. If it's private, the punishment is going to be either zero or it's going to be different. I don't want to go too long, but just a summary. Let's say, even when it comes to stealing, if somebody left something out in the open, Let's say they left their phone out in the open, and somebody comes along, they're like, oh, phone. They shouldn't grab it, of course. But if they do, they take it, say, oh, great, grab the phone, and they steal it. The punishment is not going to be the punishment mentioned in the Quran. Because the ulama, they say that one of the conditions for punishment of theft is that thing must be in a secured location and the person must have, broken into that secured location because that compromises public safety. But if somebody left something out and you stole it, it's still theft, but you don't have the same punishment. Zina is the same way. If you think about it, who's really going to be punished for zina? You have to have 4 witnesses seeing the act. How is that even going to happen? I mean, in history, there's never been a solid case of this ever happening. It's almost a theoretical punishment that's mentioned about adultery and fornication for zina. So here it all comes back down to this principle that the Prophet ﷺ was talking about: do not follow the awrah of the Muslims. If you do, it'll cause corruption. And this is important because when we look at states, there is this idea of a police state. And because Islam has some rules, and sometimes people with today, there's so much corruption going on, we look like we're like super strict people. Muslims don't drink alcohol. Everyone drinks alcohol. The Jews drink alcohol, the Christians drink alcohol, the conservative Christians drink alcohol. Muslims, we don't do zina. We don't date before marriage. You look at everyone's dating before marriage. The Mormons are dating, the conservative evangelical Christians are dating. We're like what among the last people standing when it comes to certain moral codes on LGBT and so many other things. It almost feels out of place. So sometimes what happens is, because we're in that situation, we have this idea of Islam has certain strict rules, everyone else is super lax. Then the assumption is, therefore, because Islam is strict in these rules, we should also have a police state where if we had an ideal Islamic state, we'd monitor everything. We'd be checking people's internet traffic to see if they're going on any bad websites. So any country that is checking internet traffic, that is the true Islamic state. No one would have any freedom within their home because we're trying to stop evil from happening. There would be police walking around and they'd be checking, bringing their dogs to check, is someone doing drugs inside that house? This is not the case. There's a difference. If you read the Quran and Sunnah correctly, you see the difference between rules that are there between you and Allah in your private life. And then there are rules that are there in public for public safety and protection. And that's why it's important to understand this hadith in its correct context. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us a correct understanding of Islam, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove the temptation to spy on anybody unjustly. Ameen wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum.